Hello and welcome to another Matt O'Leary live stream. What's going on? I am Matt O'Leary. You can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you're not following on one of those platforms, please make sure to do so. As you can tell by the title, I do have a lot to say today about Mike Maccagnan. Why this was sparked, we'll get into in just a second, but it's something I got to get off my chest because I don't understand how people can keep defending this guy week after week after week, year after year after year. So, why was this prompted? Mike Francesa, who does a show here in New York on WFAN, sent out a tweet today. This morning he said, quote, "Worst thing Jets could do is move away from Maccagnan now. Let him quickly select coach and start putting together a playoff team." The issue with this is he has shown zero signs of being a competent GM in this league. How can you continue to go back and say, all right, I feel confident giving this guy over $100 million in cap space to work with, let him select a new coach, and let him get another crack at the draft? To me, that makes zero sense. We'll start with the draft because that is my biggest criticism of Mike Maccagnan. Only 64% of players drafted by Mike Maccagnan are still on the roster. So that's 2015, 16, 17, 18. Over that span, the league average is 76%. That puts the Jets 31st out of 32 teams on percentage of players still on the roster. The entire 2015 draft class, except for Leonard Williams, is no longer on the team. You got nothing out of your second-round pick in Devin Smith. You got nothing out of anyone else in that draft class. 2016 is also an unmitigated disaster because of the value they had Christian Hackenberg at. They used a second-round pick on a player who will never take an NFL snap in a regular season game. He was awful in the preseason, and he will never, ever start a regular season game or get in any action. He is essentially out of the league, and he was only selected in the second round just 2 years ago. That is a fireable offense in itself. And in the first round, you took Darren Lee, who is maybe at best an average middle linebacker. He also got himself suspended, a nice 4-game suspension for Darren Lee, and the Jets defense really hasn't changed all that much. So he's not really an impact player. Same could be said for Leonard Williams. I don't think he is an impact player. He's not racking up a million sacks. He's not stuffing the run at an insane amount. His effort has been brutally bad. Just look at his game against Buffalo. The effort there was terrible. This past week against Green Bay, he got himself ejected. At best, Leonard Williams is an okay to good starter. That's not enough for a 6th overall pick who was, quote-unquote, a generational talent coming to the New York Jets at 6 overall. That is a joke. 2017, it looks like you hit on your draft pick there. Jamal Adams with the 6th overall pick, a theme here for the Jets getting 6th overall picks throughout his tenure, Mike Maccagnan's tenure. But yeah, you draft Jamal Adams in the first round, you draft Marcus May in the second. That looks pretty good. But what about the third and the fourth rounds? And before you say that, guys, nobody hits on third and fourth rounds, you are completely mistaken because there's so many times you can get good value in the third, fourth, fifth, even sixth rounds. And that hasn't been the case for the most part under Mike Maccagnan. You drafted Ardarius Stewart in the third round. He's out of the NFL after just 1 year in the league in 2017. And same thing with Chad Hansen in the fourth round. I liked Hansen a little bit better, and he was being hyped up in all of spring. He looked good in shorts. I hate that saying, but it was true. He did look good in shorts. Then they put on the pads, and they've done nothing. And the fact that they couldn't crack the roster of a 5-11 team last year, and they couldn't crack this year's roster on a team that looks like they're going to go 4-12, what does that say? What does that really say about Mike Maccagnan and his quote-unquote talent evaluation? This guy, he came from a scouting background, and he's an awful scout, or he has been ever since he came to the New York Jets because they have such a lack of talent. And the reason why they have a lack of talent, they have zero depth at any position, is because they can't hit on draft picks. That's the biggest thing when you're building a roster. You have to build through the draft in today's NFL. You can't build through free agency. And so far, Mike Maccagnan has been 31 of 32 in all of GMs in the National Football League at drafting. Then you can move on to another aspect of being a general manager, and that is signing players to a contract. He has been terrible trying to rebuild this Jets secondary. In 2015, he threw a ton of money at Darrelle Revis, Antonio Cromartie, and Buster Skrine. Buster Skrine's been okay as your slot corner. Hasn't been fantastic. Whatever. Antonio Cromartie gone after 1 year, and he was pretty bad in that 1 year. And Darrelle Revis gave you half a season in 2015 and then was awful in 2016. So he gave Darrelle Revis a 5-year, $72 million contract. That really bit him in the butt. That was not a good deal whatsoever. He was old and starting to show signs of being washed up already. That's why New England did not bring him back. When you know Bill Belichick wants no part of bringing back somebody, there's probably a good reason for it, and the Jets grossly overpaid for Darrelle Revis in 2015. Now you can go to this year. He made the same mistake again. He signed a younger version of Darrelle Revis. He signed a press corner in Jermaine Johnson, who was with the Rams last year, came from a winning culture, all that good stuff, but he's been also terrible. He's been hurt. He's a walking defensive holding penalty. He was signed to a 5-year, $72.5 million contract. So in his 4 years of being here, he has signed countless and countless cornerbacks. Morris Claiborne got a contract last year. He got a contract this year, and for a pretty decent amount of money. Jermaine Johnson, Darrelle Revis, Antonio Cromartie, Buster Skrine. That's 5 big name or semi-big name free agent acquisitions at the cornerback position. And going into 2019, that is still a hole on this team. That's bad in itself. You also have him bringing guys like Spencer Long, who was supposed to be your center, now is probably going to stay on the roster next year because his cap hit is too big. You move him to guard. Terrell Pryor, he brought in this year, gave absolutely nothing. You gave Muhammad Wilkerson a 5-year, $86 million contract extension. And yeah, sure, he looked like a good player in 2015. At least John Idzik knew that he didn't want to sign him long term, because once he did, look what happened to Muhammad Wilkerson. He was late showing up to meetings, got fat, out of shape. It was just flat out awful for the New York Jets in 16 and 17. He was non-existent. We are starting to see that with Leonard Williams this year, severely underachieving. But the worst part is, with Leonard Williams, he's in a contract year. At least Muhammad Wilkerson got himself paid. That's what contract signings. You could talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick too. That was terrible and all that stuff. But now we can move on to the final aspect of being a general manager, which is trades. And the biggest trade that stands out to me in the negative light is the Rashard Robinson trade. The Jets last year, it was clear tanking wasn't necessarily what they're trying to do, but they knew starting Josh McCown, you're not winning football games and you're not going for it this year. It was all about youth, building towards the future. And when you're building towards the future, you need as much draft capital as humanly possible. What Mike Maccagnan did instead was he gave up a 5th-round pick for Rashard Robinson. He has been atrocious as a New York Jet. In 39 snaps over the last 2 years, which is not a lot at all, so he has barely played. He has given up 199 yards on 9 targets. Thank you to Michael Nania for that stat. But that is completely unacceptable. He too cannot crack the starting lineup on, once again, a 4-12 football team this year. That shows how poorly this team is constructed and how bad he has underachieved. And once again, how bad Mike Maccagnan is at evaluating talent. It doesn't make any sense. He's been bad in all areas as a general manager, and he's had 4 years to build this roster. In 2015, they just missed the playoffs. They were trying to do a competitive rebuild in 15 and 16 with veterans. It all came crashing down in 2016, so then they tore it down. They cut Nick Mangold, David Harris, Darrelle Revis, Eric Decker, Brandon Marshall. They got all the veterans out of here, and they went with youth in 2017, building through the draft, the right mindset. Doesn't work out in 2017. You're still bad. You go 5-11 for the second year in a row. Now this year it looks like you're going 4-12. How many more chances can we get? Because now they're going to fire the head coach. Todd Bowles is a goner at the end of the year. So 2018, we could already see the goalpost being moved. 2019 rather, the goalpost being moved. Because going into this year, 2018, the thought was, okay, Sam Darnold's a rookie. You don't have to make the playoffs. Now next year it's going to be, okay, you have your first year head coach or a new coach in the system. Don't have to make the playoffs again. And now that's 5 years. 5 years of Maccagnan being here and not making the playoffs. This is also a team who has not made the playoffs since 2010. That's the third longest drought in the NFL right now. So why or how do you justify bringing back Mike Maccagnan as a good thing? I know Mike Francesa said you got to do it because you got to let him select a coach, which he really didn't do with Todd Bowles, and put a playoff team together. But I have zero confidence that this guy could put together a roster that is playoff worthy. I really don't. And even for like looking at the Jets head coaching search that he will be a part of, the Jets aren't even the most attractive job in the offseason that a coach is going to be looking at. Cleveland is a much more attractive job. They have a much better roster and a much better GM in John Dorsey. You also have Green Bay, who's a historic franchise, and they have Aaron Rodgers. That's probably number 2. I'd put the Jets third behind those two. Yeah, you have a ton of cap space and Sam Darnold, but you're also working with a general manager who's an idiot and has no business being here after 4 years of, again, mediocrity. He's been atrocious. His winning percentage is awful. Yeah, they went 10-6 in 2015. Great. You still missed the playoffs. You did not make the playoffs. You doubled down on your veteran roster again the next year. They missed the playoffs, went 5-11. Last year, 5-11. This year, going to be 4-12. How can you justify bringing him back after 3 losing seasons and taking steps backwards in your development? To me, I absolutely don't get it. If you agree with me, comment below in the comments. Get at me at social media, at Matt O'Leary NY on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.